Hello everyone and welcome back to Affinity for Commander. My name is Alex, and today we're going to be taking a look at a very tempting legend that will help you amass more wins and can help ward off any unwanted interaction. But just before that though, if you like any of the cards I'm going to be talking about here or wish to purchase the full deck list for yourself, then be sure to do so through the fabulous cardmarket.com. Or if you're one of our lovely viewers from over the pond, then be sure to check out our affiliate links for TCG Player and Flipside Gaming. Using these affiliate links does not cost you anything extra, but really does help the channel out quite a lot. Now, on to our seven-fingered lord, and let's try and be thematic with this, shall we? Sauron the Vushkos Kal Iat Zorak Ina Monsi Kal Muvat Zorak Dijas Ashkiat.
Alex!
What?
Are you using the black speech of Mordor?
Maybe.
Well, stop it. I'm trying to paint minis and it's too dark.
Fine. Try and be thematic. That's what I get. Sauron the Dark Lord is a 7/6 avatar horror for 3 generic, 1 black, 1 blue, and 1 red. He reads, Ward. Sacrifice a legendary artifact or creature. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, amass Orcs 1. Whenever an army you control deals combat damage to a player, the ring tempts you. And finally, whenever the ring tempts you, you may discard your hand. If you do, draw 4 cards. So realistically, you want to be getting Sauron out ASAP, which is kind of hard considering he's 6 mana and wearing Grixis, which isn't great for ramp. Then, your opponents, as they tend to do, start casting some spells, which then will feed into our army, making them bigger and bigger, like any good mana Gorger Hydra. The key difference between these two, however, is that when the Gorger dies, that's kind of it, they go to the grave. When the army dies, Sauron just starts remaking him over and over again, with Sauron being a lot harder to deal with, considering that sort of back-breaking ward ability that he has on him. So we want a small army to be hitting in, and more importantly connecting to get those sweet, sweet ring-tempting triggers. We also have a lot of control magic, as we are essentially going to be a pseudo-Voltron style deck, with desires of just making sure our army can get in for that good, sweet damage. Just on a small side note of that, one thing that we should be doing is making sure that our ring bearer for this deck isn't Sauron. No matter how much of a flavor fail that is, it should be his army. Because realistically, that ward ability is going to keep him safe and keep pumping our army. However, if we attack with him, as the ring bearer needs to do to trigger that ability, then we might be getting blocked, bounced, or exiled. None of which is great. So instead we make the army the ring bearer, who can then attack willy-nilly. If they die, we remake them more, we still get those attack triggers from the ring, and they also become legendary. Which, you know, it's good for them. Now that we've gone to the general idea of the deck, let's see how we're going to dominate. At the 1-drop slot, we've got a few exceptionally good little pieces of tech in Birthday Surprise, a nice little cantrip to both draw a card and have the ring tempt us. Sam's Desperate Rescue to again have the ring tempt us some more, but also return any of our valuable creatures to our hand. The Ozolith is also a great way to ensure that all those counters that get put on our army can then be put back on the new army should that one be killed or bounced or removed in any way. The last card I want to mention at the 1-drop slot is Tainted Strike. Yes, a disgusting card that realistically shouldn't exist, but does and is 1 mana. And quite frankly, a 1 mana black spell that says, you are fine to take 9 orc damage, 10 infect, not so much. Quite frankly, I love it and think should be in more decks. But then I am a bad person. Up to the 2-drop slot, we've got the majority of our ramp to help us get Sauron actually out. Arcane's Signet, Demir's Signet, Izzet's Signet, Rakdos Signet, and Mind Stones will be serving as our artifact ramp. We also have Sword of the Animus to equip to our Orc to keep getting us more and more of our basics out, because again, we're going to be attacking each turn, so why not get some basics out of it? Nightscape Familiar also serves as a great source of pseudo-ramp by making all our spells cheaper. We then have a few draw spells in Nasty End, which is a great way to ensure that we can draw hopefully 3 cards by sacrificing our Orc, because when the ring has tempted them, they'll be made into a legendary creature. And if they're going to die anyway to a removal spell or some choice blockers, we may as well get some cards out of it. And Thrill of Possibility allows us to ditch anything we don't need and draw 2 more cards. After all, we're going to be hopefully cycling through our hand quite enough anyway, and pitching more things to our graveyard is going to come in much handier later on with certain creatures. The only other cards I want to talk about the 2-drop slot are some unique little pieces of tech for our particular deck. Serum Snare is a particularly annoying card to return a non-land opponent to its owner's hand, but if it's really tiny, then we proliferate, which, considering we're putting +1/+1 counters on our army, that's actually quite nice. And Temur Battle Rage, a lovely overrunning effect that gives double strike, and should our orc be huge, which he should be, that also gives them trample. And with the addition of trample and double strike, that means Sauron will trigger twice due to the 2 instances of damage occurring. Moving up to the 3-drop slot, we've got our few more pieces of ramp in Chromatic Lantern, Commander's Sphere, and technically Staff of Completion. One of the modes adds mana, but overall the staff is there just for the immense value it gets from just having all those abilities, with one of them being importantly Proliferate to increase our army's power. Speaking of increasing our army's power, it's at this point we should really be pointing out that this is a pseudo Voltron deck, so swords are quite a must. Sword of Truth and Justice gives us pro white and pro blue, a nice buff, and importantly makes our orc army bigger with +1/+1 counters and proliferation triggers. Reaver Cleaver is a great way to not only get a buff, add that really important keyword of trample so we actually get that connective damage we need, but importantly makes us a load of treasures to be able to recast Sauron should anyone actually pay that ward cost. The last bit of buffing at 3 mana is a Sword of Feast and Famine, which I want to save for last due to the fact that its untap ability is also going to pair lovely with the card like Aggravated Assault. With these both out and the orc army being able to hit in and untapping all our lands, this essentially can give us infinite combat steps, which provide our army is big enough to tank or soak the damage, or should we have bounced everyone's creatures and permanents, Cyclonic Rift, we are then able just to dome everyone around the table continually, and yes, the ring will also tempt us, but more just the infinite combat steps and punching people in the face with the orc is kind of a really good win condition in my eyes. Speaking of ways to get rid of creatures, Bedevil gets rid of any artifact, creature, or planeswalker. Chaos Warp gets rid of, well, literally anything. Toxic Deluge can be a great little small creature sweeper, as with Sauron's 6 toughness, we should be able to wipe pretty much the entire board and leave him around. And a few ring tempting choice cards in Sauron's Ransom, a nice and fun political way to be able to get some cards into hand. Bilbo, Retired Burglar, is a ring tempting trigger on ETB and leaving the battlefield, and should we decide to make him our ring bearer because we haven't got Sauron out yet, then he also can deal damage, creating us a treasure as a helpful bit of ramp. And Fiery Inscription is a great little enchantment that has the ring tempting us on ETB, and it, along with Gutter Snipe, also kind of betray a secondary, well, technically tertiary theme at this point of the deck. In Spell Slinging, we have very few creatures, but loads of little bits of interaction, so having these 2 out means we get to do more damage to our opponents just through playing our decks. Speaking of playing our decks, Assault on Osgulith is a great massive mana sink to allow us to amass even bigger orcs, and importantly, give the one we get double strike and haste, again triggering someone multiple times and hopefully going in for one really big swing. Orcish Siege Master gives the all-important trample, but also when it attacks, it itself gets a massive buff due to the great power of our orc army we should be having. The last 2 cards I want to talk about at mana value 3 are 2 new cards from Lord of the Rings that I think are completely broken. Ring Sight is a good ring tempting trigger, as well as a just straight up shooter for your entire library, provided you got your commander out, which again, due to Sauron's OP as hell ward ability, that should always be happening. So it's essentially a 3 mana sorcery speed shooter, with the ring tempting you, which seems very good. And the last one I want to talk about is Display of Power. Now this is an absolute OP card when it comes to heavy fat stacks of counters and kill, and in response do this. You just sit back and play Display of Power, copying their counter spells and their kill spells, and you get to sit back and get so much value for just 3 mana. Absolutely love this card. Moving up to the 4 mana slot, the 2 cards I really want to talk about first is the reason we're looking to discard a lot with our draw: Anger and Wonder. With Anger in the bin, we get haste, meaning we can amass and hit straight away with them, and Wonder enables us to be able to just fly over all those pesky blockers, slap people in the face, and get those lovely ring tempting triggers while reducing our opponent's life totals all the way down. Speaking of being able to ensure we get hits in, Courtiers of Umbar is a lovely little creature that for 3 mana can make our Orc army unblockable, and importantly, whenever it deals damage to a player, we also increase our army by 3 power. Merak Nightblade ensures that our Orc army will have Death Touch, which, even when it's small, might make people hesitant to block it. And Herald of Secret Streams means that our creature with a +1/+1 counter, our army, cannot be blocked. Having a permanent unblockable big boy out with the Herald is just quite simply fantastic. Another way of dealing with pesky blockers beyond Death Touch and Flying is just to simply get rid of them. Widespread Brutality is a 4 mana way of amassing 2, which does work on our Orc, and then having our army deal damage to all non-army creatures, which, if that is above 6, will kill Sauron, but hopefully we can get it at just the right moment to kill loads of creatures off and still have our commander out. Speaking of our commander, why not have 2? Sakashima of 1,000 Faces is a great way to make a copy of Sauron and have them not die to the legend rule whilst continually pumping our army. Now whenever our opponent plays a spell, we get 2 counters instead of 1. This also works for Helm of the Host, a lovely little artifact equipment that, provided we pay that steep cost of equipping, means we get more Saurons every single combat, making again bigger and bigger armies. And the last 3 cards I want to talk about at the 4 mana value slot are exceptionally flavorful. The One Ring to Rule Them All is a great saga that gives us ring tempting triggers, destruction of all non-legendary creatures, which will hopefully leave our commander and our legendary ring bearer, and our opponents losing hopefully a ton of life. Sauron the White Hand is a great means of buffing our Orcs even more and giving some much needed protection in Ward 2. And finally, the One Ring. Because, well, come on. He made it. I don't want to be that person that starts saying put the One Ring in everything, but this is A, massively flavorful, plus we have loads of proliferating effects. Thus, we can proliferate the burden counters on the ring so we can draw more cards a lot quicker with it than other people would be able to. Moving to the 5 drops, we've actually only got 3 cards, but they're all very good. All Will Be One is a great means of adding more and more damage onto the board because whenever an opponent plays a spell or we proliferate, we're putting more counters on our army, which can be used to either ping off any Birds of Paradise or to do some chip damage. Bone Miser is in here because we're going to be hopefully discarding our hand a lot with Sauron's last ability to draw 4 more cards, and the Bone Miser will then take massive advantage of that by either giving us a zombie, land, or more card draw. And in the Darkness By Them is a great saga to create us blockers and have the ring tempt us every single turn, and then gain control of a lot of hopefully very powerful creatures, and again, have the ring tempt us. Now moving up to the last slot, these are cards that are hopefully just going to outright say, win the game. Godo, Bandit Warlord, is a great means of searching up the Helm of the Host that we talked about earlier, and is a nice satisfying win con, keeping in line with our theme of just hitting people around the face with it. And should he die, being able to search up the Helm or the Sword of Feast and Famine is a great little tutor for us. And finally, Morag, Fury of a Comb. Now while we don't have that much in the way of landfall beyond some fetch lands, being able to trigger additional combat is again a great means of having our commander being able to trigger multiple times and getting in for more and more damage. Now, onto the lands for this deck. There are a few in here that are A, very needed, or B, just exceptionally flavorful. Barad-dûr is a great way to amass more Orc armies, especially if ours just happen to die this turn. Bojuka Bark to get rid of any annoying reanimation decks. Mystic Sanctuary allows us to get back any of our important little instants or sorceries that allow us to either, just straight up win the game, or an important bit of removal should we need it. Rogue's Passage gives us a way to ensure our Orc army is going to be connecting to our opponents even through blockers. And finally, the Black Gate with its tap ability can be useful to ensure that our Orc army is going to be hitting that person with the highest life total that turn. Overall, I found Sauron to be exactly what I wanted from the Dark Lord himself. A fantastically powerful commander, a big beefy body, and if you want to interact with him, it's going to cost you. The fact that it has a legendary artifact as well, it's not just anything, you can't use a food or treasure, you have to sacrifice something really important, that is really backbreaking. Which, yes, okay, you can sacrifice your legendary creature of a commander, but that's still a 2-for-1, and that still does not feel good. Personally, I love the sneaky little Voltron style deck I've built here with it, where you're not really focusing on your commander itself, it's the big thing hitting your opponents that they have to deal with first, before they even think about sacrificing their commander to try and murderate our general. And I think Sauron would approve of a fantastic, thematic control deck, all about being tempted by the ring and letting an army crush our opponents. And that'll be it for the video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. What cards are you super excited about from Lord of the Rings set? Let us know in the comments below. We read every single one of them. As always, this video and all Affinity for Commander content is made possible thanks to the support of our amazing patrons. You guys are truly awesome. If you too like to become a patron of the channel and get access to exclusive rewards like our Discord and games with Martin and I, then be sure to check out our link in the description box below. You can also help support the channel a few other quick and easy ways. Subscribing, liking this video, commenting, and sharing it on your preferred social media platform. But that'll be it from me for now, guys. As always, I've been Alex, and I'll see you next time.